welcome to Ballot Meridian election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Julie Dunmeyer. Joining us for this candidate interview is Brian Czubak, Republican candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, you kind of already did it. I'm Brian Czubak. I'm running for Meridian Township Trustee. I've been a lifelong Meridian Township resident. I was a Marine Corps veteran as well for 5 years, where I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom.
All right, thank you. Each trustee will be asked a standard list of 10 questions. Let's get started with question number 1. What qualifications do you bring to the position of Township Trustee?
So first, I think the most important thing is I'm not a politician. This wasn't one of my aspirations growing up when I was a kid. It's not that I didn't think politics were important, it's that I just had other plans for my future. After serving in the Marine Corps, after graduating East Lansing High School and Michigan State University, and serving in the Marine Corps, I still feel like I had unfinished business. My wife wanted me to leave the Marines because I've been deployed for over half of our time together, and I still feel like I needed to do some sort of service. And it wasn't until recently that I started looking at politics, because I've looked at the national level politics, and I felt concerned with the way politicians were going, where they're more serving themselves than the people that actually elected them. So I think that's something important. The second thing is, as I mentioned, I was a Marine Corps officer. Some people would say that the Marine Corps Officer Candidate School is arguably one of the top leadership schools in the country, if not the world. And it's something that I would tend to agree with. It's something that I also feel that this board needs is some leadership as well.
All right, question number 2. What major changes do you believe residents would like to see in the near future?
I think probably the biggest change would be the current board or elected officials now, and I guess you'd call them factions. The lack of cooperation that you see, or lack of leadership between their elected officials. There's a lot of arguing and bickering that goes on. This isn't just myself saying this is people in the community that I've talked to through campaigning, as well as people in surrounding communities. They feel the same way. And I think that's something that we certainly need to change in order to better serve our people. Another concern I have is, and people have brought up to me through my campaigning, is the underdeveloped areas in Carriage Hills, Hazlet Village Square, as well as downtown Okemos. We've got some beautiful properties there in this beautiful community. I think more people would like to see that developed.
Okay, question number 3. If elected, what steps would you take to address residents' transportation concerns, including Ready Ride services and CATA's proposed bus rapid transit project?
As far as Ready Ride, I'm not hearing a whole lot of complaints about that. I think it's a good service. And in fact, before my father passed in 2008, he used that system as well when he was going to and from doctor's appointments. Without it, I'm not sure what we would have done. So I think that's a very important service that is offered. As far as CATA BRT, obviously there's a lot of negativity towards that. I would have to agree that I do not approve of the current plan itself. That's not to say that I'm not for improving mass transit. I think mass transit is very important for our infrastructure, as well as for our future, bringing businesses to the area and things like that. The issue, though, I think, is in the current plan, and the answers that it solves, but also the question marks that it brings up. So I think it's a concern for disabled people. I think it's a concern for traffic. I think it's a concern for small businesses. And I don't feel that CATA has done a good enough job addressing what those solutions would be to the current plan. Another concern I would have is I don't see yet that doing this, at least the ridership, if you will, hasn't necessarily changed a whole lot in recent times. So I think it's quite a big plan to change so much, if you will, for so little. Another issue that I would point out, or concern I have with CATA BRT, is that supposedly it's going to cost $140 million. That's a lot of money. From my understanding, I've not heard that this won't come back on the township residents, or East Lansing, Meridian Township as well. My concern would be that they get middle of the project and run out of money, and then they need to get it sponsored by the residents. And that would be a concern of mine.
Okay, question number 4. Meridian Township's branding campaign is in its final stages. Once revealed, how do you plan to champion the new brand?
As far as championing a brand, as a Marine Corps officer, I'm very familiar with a brand. The Marines, as you can tell by my haircut, some things never change. When I was serving in the Marines actively, there's rules and regulations that I had to abide by. Those are some things that I did enjoy, some things I didn't necessarily enjoy, but that was the brand for the Marine Corps. And it was very important to us. We take it very seriously. It's the same reason why I still wear the same haircut. Once in a while I'll skip a shave, but for the most part, those are very important to me. And it's the same way I will champion the Meridian Township brand as well.
All right, question number 5. What essential functions of the township would you like to see improved and why?
I think the first essential function would be our Treasurer's Department. With our approximately $27 million pension liability, I feel that it's the Treasurer's responsibility to handle that and oversee that. I can see that when you look back in history here, or recent history, the recession probably had a major effect on that. But I feel that that's something that we need to really focus on as far as changing essential things for the township. You know, if we want to continue to recruit and maintain top-level talent, we need to honor those commitments that we made those people. And I think that's the only way to do that. So, sorry. Another thing I hear a lot from campaigning, again, and I brought up earlier, is the development of the Carriage Hills, Hazlet Square Village, and downtown Okemos. Those are things that people have brought up to me multiple times. They want to see that. You know, we've got a great community. We want to continue to develop those areas. With having empty buildings, I think that it could look a lot better, if you will, and do a lot of things. As many people who have brought it up to me, I'm surprised that that more businesses aren't moving in here because of the interest. So that's something I'd like to see. And then one thing I hear from the residents all the time is the roads. As Meridian Township, we have, you know, Ingham County Road Commission handles the roads, but we also have a small fund that we also support the roads as well. But everybody always talks about the roads, the roads, the roads. Living in Michigan, unfortunately, I think that's just the way it goes. So.
All right, question number 6. How does your campaign best reflect Meridian Township's vision statement as written in the board policy manual, which states to achieve and maintain the highest quality of life for our residents?
I really think that's what my campaign is about, is maintaining the highest quality of life for the residents, and not necessarily for a political career or whatever it might be. As I stated before, I'm not a politician. This isn't why I went into this. I went in to serve. Just like that same sense of duty and sense of service that I had when I left the Marine Corps, I still felt like I wanted to do something. My wife wanted me to get out, I got out. But I feel this is a way that I can do that, to really serve the people and ensure future generations to come are going to enjoy Meridian Township. I've had the pleasure of traveling all around the country, all around the world really, and there's no place I'd rather live besides right here. This is special, near dear to my heart. Like I said, I grew up here. I live 2 blocks from my in-laws, which is kind of interesting as well. And I hope that, who knows, maybe one day my daughters will come back and live 2 blocks from me as well. We'll see.
All right, question number 7. The township, much like other municipalities across the state, is facing a huge pension liability. What direction would you like to see the board take on pension funding if elected?
I think the first thing we need to do is we need to look at and see how this happened in the first place. You can't fix something or go a certain direction, I think, until you know how you got there. That's Land Navigation 101 from the Marine Corps. So I think we need to look at, you know, how we got there. I would certainly say that the recession, you know, 2007 to 2011, had an impact across the board. But why isn't it we haven't made changes since then to correct this plan? Why is this now an issue within the township? Instead of when we came out of the recession in 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, why is it we're looking at 2016? That's a concern about. But as far as direction, I'm all for honoring the commitments you've made. Your word is your bond, and especially to maintain Meridian Township the way we want to, such as recruiting, maintaining high-level employees, having a high-level police, fire, EMS, and employees. We need to be able to honor our commitments to them. No one's going to want to come work here if we can't honor those commitments.
All right, question number 8. How do you plan to strengthen relationships between the township and business districts to promote growth?
Well, I think the first thing is we need, as I mentioned, on the campaign trail, a lot of people have approached me and discussed seeing the development of those 3 areas. And I think that's important. I'd like to see that myself. I think there's good opportunity there. There's the residents of Meridian Township are certainly interested in it. I think we need to work with the Lansing Chamber of Commerce because they're obviously pro-business and looking for businesses as well. Hopefully they can help us get the word out that the residents are asking for it. They want that. Then I think we also need to approach the developers. So the developers for Carriage Hills and Hazlitt Square Village, I think we need to develop or approach those gentlemen and see where it's at and see what they want to be able to do. I think there's good opportunity here. I think that the developers themselves, if their property's sitting empty, they're not making any money. In fact, they're spending more money probably because the buildings aren't appreciating faster than what the cost is of the maintenance and everything else. When you look at downtown Okemos, I know that was being bought up by the owners of Douglas J and I think some other developers. And the plan was to develop or build a new Douglas J salon where the Tuba Museum used to be. I just saw an article last week that they decided against that and they're looking to businesses to come in and take over some of those areas. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's exciting. I look forward to seeing what's going to happen down the road, but that's right.
Okay, question number 9. What approach do you propose to address issues such as blight with underdeveloped and/or vacant properties within the township?
I think blight's a harsh word for Meridian Township. I see your point, but blight is more neglected in my opinion. Where I don't see blight and neglect in Meridian Township, I think the township itself has done a good job of their vacant properties that's owned by them, maintaining or enforcing codes and things like that. So maintenance is kept up on the properties they don't own. When you look at the areas that I've mentioned already, I don't think they're necessarily in bad shape. I just think they're not being used right now. They're empty, they're vacant. And that's kind of goes back to your early question. We need to work with the businesses, get the word out that the citizens and the residents are looking for businesses to move into these areas, and work with the developers to see what we can do to improve these areas.
All right, and the last of our standard list of questions, question number 10. What goals would you like to see the township accomplish in the next 5 years?
So I think first and foremost, goal is we need to solve this pension liability. I would not like to see our township get a reputation of us not paying our bills, if you will. We made a commitment to some people with responsibility to handle that, and I think we need to honor that as well. I would like to see those areas developed. I mentioned that as well. It would be nice to see even some development, not necessarily development, but changing in the facade of those places there's a lot of beautiful downtowns in a lot of areas. I think we can do that in those areas as well, such as that East Lansing area, Okemos and Hazlitt. I think those are important things. I also want to see the township revenue increase. I know we have needs for our funding for police, fire, EMS, and I think most people would agree we have some top level police, fire, and EMS, and in order to keep that, I think we need to continue to provide them the tools they need to make that happen. I think that's our responsibility as well. And lastly, just to make sure that this is a beautiful place to live for years to come. I think we've done a good job of that so far. Obviously, I'm 41 years old and I've moved back here myself, and from the Marine Corps, so let's keep it that way.
All right. At this time, we finished the standard list of questions with Brian Czubak, who's a Republican candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. We have some time remaining, and I have some follow-up questions if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely.
All right. My first question is, you mentioned earlier you feel that there's a lack of cooperation within the township board.
Yes.
How would you, if elected, fix that and create a more cohesive board? Or what do you think needs to be done in order to have a more cooperative board?
Good question. So it's surprising because the current board, as well as the other elected officials, are all the same political party. Why there's these different factions that argue amongst each other, I'm not sure. Sitting in the meetings that I've gone to, I've noticed the tension myself, and I'm surprised. It seems almost childish, to be honest. I'm not sure how people get so angry and frustrated in something. People don't have to agree with me. It's my opinion. You know, you have your opinion. Maybe we talk about it like grown-up adults and kind of come to an agreement on something. I'm not always going to win my argument. You may not always win your argument. But to get as tense and as frustrated about it, to me, it points to people more concerned about themselves and their political career than they are the people.
All right. And you've been a longtime resident, as you've mentioned, and you're really for development, as we've talked about. How would you, if elected, plan developments so that Meridian Township stays a beautiful place to live for years to come, for future generations?
Sorry, you're saying how would I have elected plan developments?
If elected, how would you select developments to further the township instead of, I think a lot of times people hear the word development and they get concerns, that businesses would come and potentially leave. I know that's something that I've heard about. So how would you plan safe development, or what ways would you develop the township?
So as an elected official, these aren't my buildings. I don't have control over them, and I don't, make the final call with them. What I would like to see, what I've seen in other places, especially with elected officials, which would be my role, is to come up with a plan where we have rules or regulations on how we're going to develop future, or how renovations are going to happen. So we want to keep everything looking like a cute downtown area or whatever have you. When these buildings are developed, redone, or whatever else, they're done in all the same manner to make it a certain look, if you will. I've seen that happen. I think it works very well. I think that developers are open to that, and I think that residents would be, as well as businesses, because I think it draws people in.
And we talked a little bit about BRT, and I think that there is, or I've seen on social media in regards to that, kind of a negative connotation with that. What things would you like to see in a BRT plan from CATA to improve that plan for residents? You mentioned concerns about the taxpayer dollar, falling back on the taxpayer dollar. What are some of your thoughts on that?
So I think that the tension is not necessarily, I think it was brought on by CATA, not so much the residents. I think the residents thought, whoa, this is a big plan. It's a big change. Change is difficult for anybody. I think when the residents looked at it and said, let's ask some questions of the small business owners. Let's ask some questions. I think it was the tension from CATA that came back and how they came back that kind of elevated the stress about the whole situation. Some things I'd like to see. They want to use the middle lane, and small businesses are concerned about left-hand turns on Grand River and Michigan Avenue, and I can see why. I think there's concerns with lack of stops, that they're cutting the number of stops. So, a business like Playmakers, they're for the BRT, and rightfully so. There's going to be stopped right in front of their place. If it were my business, I would be as well. But I think other small businesses are saying, well, what about me? What about this place? And I think that's certainly reasonable. Those with disabilities have said, well, instead of going into Meridian Mall, into certain areas, now you're going to have to walk across traffic. You're going to have to navigate across traffic and these things. And I don't think there's really an answer there yet to what the solution is. So I'd like to see CATA be more forward with their plans and more open to altering their current plan or redesigning a whole new plan to fit those needs for the community.
All right. Well, we have a few minutes remaining. If you'd like to make a brief closing statement, you can go ahead and do that at this time.
Sure. As I said earlier, my name is Brian Czubak. I'm running for Meridian Township Trustee. You have 4 votes. I'd appreciate one of your votes in November, and God bless America.
All right, well, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
This has been a candidate interview with Brian Czubak, Republican candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. I'm Julie Dunmeyer, inviting you to watch Ballot Meridian election coverage right here on Home TV.